My name is Lord Bakington, and today I have a super fun recipe for all of you. This is something everyone will enjoy unless you're gluten intolerant. In that case, I'm sorry, you're up a creek without a paddle. I'm going to be showing you how to make, first off, a mother dough for cookies that you could turn into pretty much anything. And secondly, a cookie using half oat flour. And it's really nice, really chewy. It adds like a rich, dense, earthy taste to it. And I think it's really great. So let's get started. First things first, we need to make the dough for our mother dough for sugar cookies, because as you can see, I have my work surface segregated. That's because one side is old-fashioned, the other side is technological. Now, today we're going to be making this mother dough and flavoring it in two different ways. And the secret ingredients today are chocolate powder and lemon. Not only lemon, lemon funfetti. So, let's get this horror show rolling. So if you have a stand mixer, use your stand mixer. If you have an electric blender that uses your hand, you go like that, use one of those. If you have a whisk, use a whisk. So, for our mother dough for our sugar cookies, we're going to take 4 ounces of room temperature butter. Just plop the fat right in there. It's always handy to have a trash can right below you. 4 ounces of cream cheese, because it adds a rich, sort of creamy, tangy taste to it, because the rest of this is pretty sweet. Just squeeze it all in there, get all the white goop out of it. 3/4 cup of sugar. And now we're going to let that go on a low speed until everything's creamed together. Always make sure to clean as you go. Now for the rest of our ingredients, I've got an egg, 2 1/4 cups of plain white flour, and in this little ramekin, oh, thank you for hosting. In this little ramekin, I've got half a teaspoon of baking powder and a big pinch of salt. Salt is really important for baking because it helps everything kind of raise the sweet flavor. Just as well, I've got some vanilla. Add as much as you like. I like to add around a teaspoon for this recipe. Thank you for following. Then we're going to add in a big squeeze of lemon juice and 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder and some milk to help mix everything together, because the cocoa powder can kind of dry the dough out. Now, for our other cookies, thank you, Kanishi, for the host, I have a 50-50 mixture of 1 cup of white flour, and if I can get down in there, 1 cup of oat flour, and that really was just oatmeal, instant oatmeal, that I put in the blender and ground up. Softguru, thank you for the follow. I've also got I got another half teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of cinnamon. I've got a cup of butter, also at room temperature, half a cup of dried cranberries, half a cup of white chocolate chips, a 50-50 mixture of half a cup of white sugar and half a cup of brown sugar, and another single egg. Alright, let's check on how our butter and cream are doing. They're doing fantastic. I'm going to turn the speed up and add in the 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I want to get this dough started first, because this is going to take a little while to chill in the refrigerator before we roll it out and kind of make individual cookies out of it, whereas this one we can just plop right onto the baking sheet after it's mixed. So, I'm going to add in the salt and baking powder into the flour. And with a fork, just kind of mix it all together. Alright, that's looking beautiful. So I'm going to turn the speed down, lift it up. You can see how soft and creamy it is. That's because of the cream cheese. Now, with your pig spatula, important to have a pig spatula, scrape the bowl down to get everything off the sides and everything really well mixed. scrape it all together, and I'm going to add in about half the flour right now, the egg, crack it in, no fear. If you find any bits of shell, take them out, but I didn't because I'm pretty good at this. And then for this initial mix, you want to put everything together in your mixer. Don't put it on too high of a speed right now, because if you do, your flour will just kind of go everywhere, and that's not fun. Now that I've handled the raw egg, I'm going to wash my hands, because we want to be healthy here. Dry my hands. Into the trash that goes. And now that that's the first part's all mixed in, there's not going to be flour when I turn this on higher. I'm going to lift that up. And now for this next part, I'm going to knock the dough off of the whisk. Perfect. Ooh, in there it goes. Take this off. And we are done with our stand mixer. You could have totally done this by hand, but it would have taken a lot longer. Gracious, what was that? And now, look, this is what I mean by scraping the sides down. If you look into the bowl, you can see around the edges there's like flour that hasn't been mixed in. So take your spatula. It's important to have a spatula, even if it's not a pig spatula, but a pig spatula is best. And just kind of scrape and fold. Just grab it and push it onto itself. And that will make sure that everything's well mixed. Now, I'm going to add in the remainder of our flour. Once again, clean as I go. And I'm going to fold in the remainder of the flour. The reason we don't want to kind of whip it in again with that whisk attachment on our stand mixer is because this stuff has gluten, and when we whip it, the gluten will start to get its groove on and get really tough and elastic and chewy, and we don't want tough, elastic, and chewy cookies. We want, well, we do want chewy, but we don't want hard cookies. We don't want tough cookies. We want chewy, kind of crispy, fudgy cookies. So now that I'm done, I've gotten to the point where I can kind of work it with my hands. So I'm going to go at it with one hand first. Just gently kind of toss everything together in your hands. And you'll start to feel that the dough kind of comes together a bit. Not into like a bread dough, but more like a, I guess, thick cookie dough. Like, I'm not talking cookies like, yeah, like a chocolate chip cookie dough where it's kind of soft and kind of stiff and doesn't melt in your hands when you hold it. That's kind of what we're looking for. Actually, that's exactly what we're looking for. Not kind of. So you don't want to whip everything together because you'll start to get that gluten development. And now, time for the big reveal. Plop the dough out. Scrape out all of the dough from the inside because you've worked hard for this dough. You might as well get all of it. Wipe my hands off. Just work the dough a little bit together with your hands. And now, we can do two things with this. I'm going to cut it in half as best I can. And put it back in. I'm going to add in a big squeeze of lemon juice. And some zest. It's always best to zest the fruit right over what you're putting it in because all the oils come out when you're zesting it. And that's just the best. Make sure to knock all the little bits off. Wipe it off too. If any little bit of seed gets in, make sure to pick those up. No one wants to eat those. At least I don't know anyone who wants to eat those. And work it in. Ooh, it's all sticky. It smells amazing too. Now, for this part, this is the lemon funfetti. So add in your sprinkles. You don't have to make funfetti either with this recipe. You can just leave the sprinkles out and make really good lemon sugar cookies. But I personally like the funfetti. It adds just that extra wow factor. Now, this dough is pretty sticky, but not unworkable. As you can see, I can toss it around. It leaves my hands fairly clean. So, put that to one side. And into this one, I'm going to add Trishu, thank you so much for the follow. The cocoa powder. So I'm just going to open this up. This is brand new cocoa powder because I didn't want to give you guys any kind of already used nonsense. Press it out and add in about a tablespoon to start because I don't know if you're going to need all of it, some of it, none of it. To kind of work it in. And eventually you'll have some kind of chocolatey dough. This is also another reason why you need to make sure that whenever you're cooking, regardless of what you're cooking, you want your work surface, whatever that may be, your countertops, your cutting boards, your mixing bowls, to be absolutely clean because you don't want any kind of flavor transference between your food and your surface. If I was, say, earlier in the day making trout, and I was like descaling it and all that other gross nonsense, if you enjoy seafood, I don't. If it's into the sea, it's not for me, but that's just me personally. You would really need to wipe down your counters, make sure that everything's clean, that nothing has a smell. If it has a smell, it will have a flavor too. That's just because smells and flavors go hand in hand. There's our delicious chocolatey dough. Wonderful, brown, squishy, and absolutely delicious. So, I'm going to let those sit in the fridge for around half an hour. No more than that, because you don't want this to be too hard of a dough. Once again, clean as you go. And I need to wash my hands because I don't want any kind of flavor transference between the chocolate dough and our white chocolate cranberry oat cookies. Alright. So, nice clean bowl. I'm going to start off the same way we started off with our sugar cookie mother dough. That mother dough minus the lemons, the sprinkles, and the chocolate could really become anything. You could fold in some chocolate chips and make it a chocolate chip cookie dough. You could add in some, what else could you add in? Peanut butter if you wanted to. You could really go to town with it. You're only limited by your imagination, and I have a fairly large imagination, as I've been told. I've been had to put on medication for it. I'm going to add in the half cup of both white and brown sugar, because we're all about integration here. And with my whisk, because I'm going to be an old person now, just kind of beat it all together. Just beat your butter, beat your sugar, until you get nice, creamy mix. And once that initial mixing is done, you can really get vigorous with it. Remember the cream? If you've seen my cream stream, just like that. Go to town on it. Want to make sure that everything's really well mixed. Nowadays we have machines for all of this, but there really is no real good way to just get at your ingredients unless it's by hand. I mean, there are certain things that really do make my life a lot easier, like piping bags and my stand mixer, but you know what? There really is no replacement for the human touch. Machines will never replace humans in the touch department. So, now that our butter and sugar is all deliciously creamed together, I'm going to add in the egg. Perfect, no egg shell. Once again, wash my hands because I touched the raw egg. Once again, dry my hands because I touched the raw egg and now they're wet. Now beat that egg really well. It'll separate and go really claggy at first. Also, here's a tip. If you're using, I highly recommend whenever you're baking anything, to have your ingredients, unless it says otherwise, at room temperature. So the only exception I would imagine is, say, tart pastry. They want your butter and fat to be really cold. Make sure that's cold. Otherwise, your eggs, if your butter is supposed to be room temperature, make it room temperature. You just want everything to sit out for a little while because it helps everything mix better. If you were to put a cold egg, say, into the warm butter, it would cause the butter to really cool off, harden, and curdle. If that does happen, oh my gosh, Xsammy D, oh my gosh, thank you so much for the $20. Thank you, you're the best. So, oh my gosh, having a moment right now.
Cooking stuff with this.
Thank you. So, if you have used a cold egg or cold butter, I actually would never recommend you ever, unless you're using a machine, use cold butter when you're making cookies. Always soft room temperature butter. If you used a cold egg though, add in a tablespoon of flour with your egg and it will help sort of beat everything together. But once you really beat it up and get this really fluffy, pale goodness, you can add in some vanilla extract, again, half a teaspoon for this amount of dough. Mix that in. Just give it a real good beating. Just work at it, get it real good. Now I'm going to add in the flour, the cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of baking powder. Just get real handsy with it. Mix all this together. Actually, I'm going to switch to this fork because I really would rather not get all the thick dough caught into these little wires. Use whatever medium you'd like to use for whisking and mixing. I choose whisks for mixing things that are smooth and like thin. If it's thick, I would highly recommend like a spoon or a spatula or a fork or really whatever you have on hand. They say baking is super difficult and that you have to follow a lot of recipes and follow a lot of rules and regulations, but really once you get the basic idea down, once you get the basic science down, which is what I want to teach you all today, you can really play and tinker with it, and there's really a few ways to mess something up. I will say if the recipe says to follow the directions in a certain order, make sure you do that. I have a really unfortunate example from back when I was in school. We were put in charge of like basically running a little tiny kitchen, and it was a great time. I was the executive pastry chef. Title, executive pastry chef, I really didn't do much. Oh, one thing before I go off on my tangent, make sure you scrape all the way down to the bottom and get every little bit mixed together. As you can see, it's a really thick dough. So I'm going to add in my half a cup of white chocolate chips and my dried cranberries. And just kind of fold all this together until it's evenly mixed. So, it was really important to note that you would need to follow the recipes in order that it says. I will go over, I'm actually going to go over in a stream I think next week about 2 different ways to mix cookies and how they affect the cookie outcome. But for this instance, you want to follow what's called the creaming method, which is what we've been doing. You cream the butter and sugar together, add the eggs, and add any other wet ingredients before you add all the dry ingredients. That's called the creaming method. So this dude in the kitchen didn't read the recipe properly when he was making waffles because he wanted to make waffles. And you know, more power to him, waffles are great. In waffle making, you're supposed to beat egg whites to give it that puffiness and then fold them into your batter so that way your waffles have that crispy, light, airy texture. But he kind of just threw everything into a bowl and mixed it all together, and his waffles were awful. They were awful waffles. So take a big spoon, like a soup spoon, and just kind of scoop out bits of dough and plop them onto your baking sheet. These cookies aren't going to flow like normal cookies do, so it's okay if they're kind of near each other. But just, you want big cookies because these also aren't going to flow out, so you have to press them out by hand. Just kind of squish them down with your fingers. And I'm thinking we're going to get about 10 cookies from this dough. Of course, if you want smaller cookies, use a smaller spoon. Just use your eye at this point, gauge how big you want your cookies. But I think I'm going to get about 8 or 10 out of this. Now that I'm doing something really boring, like scooping cookie dough, I'm going to look at the chat real quick. Extra gluten, indeed. These cookies are not gluten-free, Sammy. They're actually very high in gluten. There's about half a cup of gluten containing flour in these cookies, and then 2.5 cups, or 2 1/4, in the other ones, in the sugar cookies. Now when I make pizza, we're going to be making pizza one day, I'm going to show you a different kind of flour that's great for making really crispy, that's not a word, crispy pizza dough that has a lot of gluten in it. So, there we go. These are our cookies. Let me just taste our dough. It's amazing. Holy crap. Think of like a oatmeal cookie dough, but better. Amazing. Wash my hands. And now, just press the cookies down lightly. You don't want to make them flat. Now these are going to go into a 370-degree oven for around 10 to 15 minutes, or until they're brown and nice and delicious looking. Alright, wipe my surface down a bit. Grab my second sheet of paper. Clean as I go, once again. Now I'm going to get our sugar cookie dough. Fantastic, they're nice and stiff. So I'm just going to start breaking off little golf ball sized pieces, rolling them out in my hands, pressing them down to make little patties. I'm going to put these onto our sheet. Of course you can modulate how much dough you want per cookie. I do love a good stiff dough. So much easier to work with. You can just like get it right in your hands and kind of squish it around without worrying that it's going to get all over you. Squish it around, make little balls with them. Press them out. These are going to look so pretty when we're done. This dough already looks so pretty. Press it out with your hands, make sure that it's well pressed, nice and even. You don't want to make them too long though. In this instance, long is not always good. And again, it appears I'm going to get about 10 cookies out of this. Press it out. Put it down. Let me move these over. This one's a little bit too big, actually. There. We've got to shrink it down to size. How long do these cookies last? That really depends on how you keep them. I keep them in a airtight container for, I just put them all in an airtight container once they've cooled down. You never want to put things in storage when they're hot, though. An airtight container for around, they keep best for about a week, but you can eat them for about a month or so afterwards, unless you start to see any little speck of discoloration from mold or anything. Throw it out no matter what. You can kind of save cheese if it's moldy. You can't save these. I have to say that. If you keep them in a P.O. box for 6 months, I will strangle you. No, not really. You can keep them in a temperature-controlled room as long as they're kept cool for around 2 months. I wouldn't advise. The thing is, if you want to keep them for that long, I wouldn't advise eating them anyways, because you obviously don't care to eat them. Once I free up a baking tray, I will put these on. Let's just check on these cookies. How are they doing? They're looking absolutely gorgeous. So, to accompany our sugar cookie dough, our lemon sugar cookies, I'm going to continue with the lemons and make a royal icing. Lord Bakington is making royal icing, people. Call the media. One moment, please. I have to wash off my whisk. If you baked them at, you have to brush them with some kind of lacquer or some kind of stuff for glazing, then yeah, you can bake them, make them into necklaces, but I wouldn't advise it. 2 egg whites in here. Oh. 2 egg whites minus a little bit of spill. Into a bowl they go. And then a squeeze of lemon juice. Not only does this add a lemony flavor, but it also raises the pH, no, it lowers the pH of our eggs to help prevent any bacteria and bad stuff from hurting us, because this is not going to be cooked. This is a egg and sugar mix that we're going to put on top of our eggs, our cookies. It gives that nice, hard, crunchy icing that we love. But it is with raw eggs, so if you're a person with a compromised immune system, like a really old or really little kid, or if you are a person with a compromised immune system because you have some kind of caged cub, thank you so much for the follow, you're the best, then I would advise you not to eat these, or at least be judicious about this. If it's a baby, I wouldn't advise giving it to them. If you're really old and about to die, I wouldn't, oh, you know, you're about to die, I don't care. But if you have a compromised immune system, be careful. So, 2 egg whites minus a little bit of spillage, and a big squeeze of lemon juice, and I'm going to add in around a pound of powdered sugar, which is about 4 cups. But it really does depend. You add in a little bit at first, mix it in, and just keep going until you get the right consistency. It really does depend on the egg. Like a jumbo versus a medium-sized egg is about like a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons off in liquid. And that really can affect the outcome, so it really does depend on the kind of eggs you're using. So, leave it up to you. Sammy, yes, personally I am a flat up 11. I am as basic as they come. I have to get my Starbucks and whatnot. But we're trying to make this more acidic. So just keep mixing in sugar as you go. You might need more, you might need less. I'll show you when I get to the right consistency. Add a little bit more sugar. I'm going to add in a bunch more sugar this time. And you'll start to notice it'll get thicker. It won't be as yellow. It'll start to turn a little bit white. And it'll look really yummy. And it'll start to get really thick. As you can see, it's not as egg whitey as it was before. So give it a real good beating. And I think I'm going to need all the sugar. So I'm going to add in the rest. Give that a mix. Oh, thank you for the follow. Give that a real big mix. Really work it. And eventually you'll get this white, pale, goopy stuff. But really work it, and eventually you'll get it. Once you get the white, goopy stuff, you know you can stop. It's a little thin for my liking, so I'm going to add in some more powdered sugar. Like I said, it really does depend on how much, the size of your eggs. The size of your eggs really is important. So measure your eggs before you start, your 2 eggs. The size of your eggs will determine how much white stuff you have at the end. Just add in another big flop. Mix that all together. Thank you, Kanishi. Now I'm going to keep working this until I get the proper consistency of my white stuff, also known as royal icing. So once you've beaten your icing, it'll all kind of be runny and gooey and delicious. As you can tell, the nature of the icing has changed a bit. It's when I would lift the whisk out, it would not leave a trail, and now it does. It kind of piles up before it sinks back down. If you've ever played with a mixture of cornstarch and water, you'll know how that looks, where it kind of holds its shape and then melts down. That's what we're looking for. There. Now this is beautiful. I'm going to check real quick on our cookies. And they're looking huge, absolutely delicious, and wonderful. So, I'm going to touch one with my baker hands, and they're still really gooey and fudgy in the center, so I'm going to leave them in there for a little bit longer. And I'm going to put these in the oven. The beauty about this recipe is they both need to be at a 750 degree oven for this similar amount of time. You can really just gauge. For the sugar cookies, I would recommend between 8 and 12 minutes. And if you have hands that you're able to, or you can just take it out, I suppose, and look at one at the bottom. But look at their bottoms after 10 minutes or so. If it looks like they're brown, goldeny brown, then they're done. You don't want these cookies to get brown because you want that nice white look to them. So, keep beating your icing. Make sure your icing doesn't get hard. You don't want to make this too far in advance, and if you do, you want to cover it and put it in the fridge because it will harden, because this stuff dries out and gets nice and crunchy and hard. Not 750, 375. So I'm going to clean up as I go once again. Oh my gosh, the awesome guy, thank you for the follow. Put all my junk in the sink. Actually, it's starting to look not as thick as I thought it would. So I'm gonna, just a pinch more. You really want to get this right. If you don't get this right, your cookies will have a goopy icing versus a hard icing. And sometimes it really is just a tablespoon or two difference between perfect and awful. No pressure though. Much better. Look, I can draw my whisk through. I can kind of push everything to the side. And for a split second, I can see the bottom of the bowl. That's what we're looking for. For it all flows back together. Like that. The white of my Coke was messing it up. I didn't say a pinch, I said a tablespoon. Let me just touch these one more time. Ouch, they're hot. But I already knew that. And it looks like they're going to need a few more minutes, maybe just one or two. So I'm going to clean up as I go. That's not cleaning. Grab some parchment paper, because once those cookies are out, we can take this and just slide them right on. Slap your parchment paper down. Let's get down. Take your chocolate dough, and just as we did before, roll out some little balls. Then press those balls out into discs. You don't want your balls to be too big, because then they won't cook properly. So just press them out with your hands. And I think I'm going to be able to get around, again, 10 cookies out of this dough. So you have to smash the balls, put them on the sheet, and soon you'll have some really, really delicious chocolate cookies. Asian Batman, you made your balls really big? Okay, then I would suggest you kind of mix them back together and make them a little bit smaller, because we don't want these balls to get too big. Be gentle with them if you have to, but also show them who's boss. I think I'm going to get about 8 cookies out of this dough. Actually, no, I lied. I'll probably get about 9. I don't want to make these too small or too big. I wouldn't want them too big, because then if they're too big, the rest of them won't cook properly. So if you have a really big one and a really small one, the small one will cook and burn before the big one is cooked. So we want to make sure that they're all around the same size. There. Beautiful. I got 9 cookies. I'm going to bring them in a little bit because I think that I've spread them out too much. One more time, I'm going to check on those other ones. They're beautiful. They're giant, but they're beautiful. And they're still fudgy, so I'm going to put them back in and check on my sugar cookies. And of course, because they've only been in for like 3 minutes, they're nowhere near cooked. Beautiful. I'm actually going to make this one a little bit smaller and this one a little bit bigger, because this one is kind of thin. Also, make sure that they're around the same size and thickness. Thick cookies cook longer than thin cookies. Just a fact of life. Pat them out. And check your icing. Give it a good stir so it doesn't develop like a skin on the top. Plus, it's always good to beat your icing now and again. I'm so happy my parents are home, so I can do this. I can beat the icing without worrying about them coming in and seeing me. So, clean up this lemon slice, and one last check. With these, they're a bit of a pale color, so you want to really look at the edge of the cookie. If the edge of the cookie looks brown, test the center. The center, oh my gosh, Tommy James, thank you for the follow. Then you want to feel the center. The center is a little squishy in the center. It's not going to cool. It's going to cool, but get really fudgy and gooey in the center. Make sure that the center is touchable without really any give to. Oh, there'll be some give, but not like liquid. When it's brown around the edges, check the center. If the center's cooked, take them out. Give them a little look underneath. If they look fine, then they're good. However, I would advise you to be a little judicious with the timing. If it looks at 8 minutes like they're cooked, don't wait the full 15. So, put this to one side. Let me get a spoon, and I will show you the next part. A spoon to apply our icing. And where'd it go? Here we go. One of my most important tools, which is a palette knife. This has no blade whatsoever. Ow. No blade whatsoever. It's literally just used for smoothing icings and spreading things out and kind of lifting and looking. Oh, not cooked. So these are not ready to come out of the oven yet. Oh. Who knew that cooking could make you so... Oh, lovely. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. So, now these are ready. Let's leave them to cool. And I'm going to let them cool on the rack that they're on, and on their baking sheet for around 5 minutes, because when we take them out of the oven, they're still hot and they're still soft. And once they cool down and kind of cool down, yeah, they'll dry out a little bit and get that firmness that they need to not fall apart if I tried to lift them off the sheet right now. It's always good when you're making cakes or really anything you're baking, leave it to cool for around 5 to 10 minutes before you try to take it off of whatever it's in. If you were to take a cake out, for instance, right after it's cooked, it will fall apart into pieces because it's still soft and hot, where if you let it cool down, it kind of firms up a little bit. And that little bit is really all it takes. Your cookies look good, but I'd rather have your oven. Thank you. My oven is very nice. It was custom. This whole kitchen was custom built for me in an attempt for my parents to get me to come home. And I did. I think I'm the winner here. I Fearly HD, thank you for the follow. Beat my icing real quick. Make sure there's no skin forming. Perfect. I'm going to check on our sugar cookies. They're puffing up beautifully, but then look at the bottom of one of them. They actually look pretty good. So I'm going to leave them in for about another minute because that one had just the smallest bit of give to it that wasn't really necessary. And I'm going to show you what our delicious big cookies look like. Ta-da! It's big, it's firm, it's hot, it's really, really good looking, and it's amazing. These cookies are delicious. The one really cool thing about them is that when they're really hot, the liquid and the heat causes the dried cranberries to puff up, and they have this juicy little bite to them. It's amazing. The oat flour Has this wonderful texture. Not too sweet either. The trouble with making a cookie with white chocolate in it is that it's very easy, because white chocolate has a lot of sugar versus any other kind of chocolate. It's very easy to over sugar it. This is wonderful. So, I'm going to take these off, put them to one side, let those cool, and take this very hot tray and slide on our chocolate cookies. Ouch. Just kidding, that didn't hurt. So, these are going to go into the oven at the same degrees, same time, same everything as our lemon sugar cookies, which I will actually take out right now. Absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm going to let those cool before I do anything with them. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy a little bit more cookie. These really are amazing. They're buttery without being heavy, which is difficult because you can really add any number, any ratio of oat flour to regular flour, bearing in mind that the more oat flour you add, the tougher and the heavier your cookies will be. I use a 50-50 mixture. It's delicious. If I had a criticism, though, of my own baking, it would be that the cookies lack a form and like stability. The reason being, the more oat flour you add also decreases the amount of gluten, which holds the cookies together. And in this case, it's only about half. Holy crap, they're delicious. I'll wash my hands, and we'll sort out our lemon sugar cookies. Ooh, look at that. Beautiful. So, I have made a really delicious white chocolate cranberry oat cookie. And some equally beautiful funfetti lemon cookies. And I also have chocolate cookies made from the same dough as these funfetti lemon cookies in the oven. Beat your icing. And while your cookies are still a little bit warm, take a spoon and a cookie over your mix, blob on some icing. The back of the spoon, just gently press it out. And put it down. Actually, I'll finish by sprinkling on just a few more sprinkles to show that these are supposed to be fun, sprinkly cookies. And we'll repeat the process. Cookie. Make sure that your cookies aren't too hot either, because if they are too hot, the icing will just kind of melt off. Add a little blob on. Press it out in a little circular pattern with the spoon. And there you go. And while it's still a little bit liquid, sprinkle on some more sprinkles, because sprinkles are fun and everyone loves them. If you don't get off my stream. M60. That song is one of my favorite. I think I'm probably going to lose a lot of people for that, but that is one of my favorite songs. I love Rebecca Bleak. You also don't want to put too much because you want them to taste the cookie as well as the delicious icing. And if all they taste is delicious icing, it's not really all that great. Sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. Have some more cookie to celebrate. Ah, rip my viewer count. Blob, spray, blah, blah. Bloop. Sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. If you get a bit of an overflow or an ooze, don't worry. Makes them look prettier. Bloop. And even though the little bit of lemon was used, Amanda, thank you so much for the follow. The lemon was used for lowering the pH of our eggs and making it a little bit less likely to get sick from. It also adds a really nice lemony flavor to our icing, which is what we want, considering these are lemon funfetti sugar cookies. So, carry on. Just thought I might let you know. Pause one moment because I want to check on our chocolate cookies. They are far too squishy. So leave them in. Hum, hum, hum. Plus, it's always important to use the fruits of the season, and right now, where I live, lemons are super abundant. Plus, it's the best place to get lemons. And I live in an area where things are grown, so why not take advantage of the situation? Blob some more icing on. Doot, doot, doot. Doot, doot, doot. There we go. So I want to use the fruits of the season. So to continue with my summery theme, on Monday when I stream again, we're going to be showing you how to make a really delicious lemon bundt cake with a super, super tart icing. These cookies are amazing, by the way. If I haven't said that a million times already. We just sprinkle and sprinkle. Which was the first one I iced again? I think it was this one. Just wipe off the excess. Put it on a plate. Delicious. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. They're pretty. They're colorful. I'd pay $200 an hour just to have you cook for me lots of food. I would definitely take you up on that offer. So, this one has a nice set topping to it. I'm going to taste it. It's amazing. It's rich, not super sweet for a sugar cookie, because you also have the sweet icing. The lemon isn't overpowering. It just adds that nice citrusy note. There's an all-around yummy cookie. And the 50-50 mixture of cream cheese and butter, instead of just straight butter, really does add a wow factor. Probably what makes it so rich. I'll wash my hands. And check on our third and final cookie. Which will need about another 2 minutes, and with those 2 minutes, I'm going to there they are. Gather some more white chocolate chips. Maybe just a quarter cup, because we're going to put these on top of our hot cookies, and the heat from the cookies would make them melt and give a nice, different colored topping to our cookies. Nom 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 nom. Nom nom nom. Yummy. Move these out of the way to make room for our chocolate cookies. The issue with the chocolate cookies is that they're brown already, so it's really difficult to tell when they're brown. I mean, when they're cooked, because they don't brown around the edges as noticeably as they would if they were white, and they don't look all that different on the bottom either. Delicious cookies. So for these, you really have to follow the feeling of the cookies. And now that I'm done, beep, turn off the oven, because it's 1,000,000 degrees in my house right now because of that. I do bake real food, and actually, on, I believe it's 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be showing you how to make, I believe it is a chicken pot pie. So, not a packaged chicken pot pie, not one you get out of a freezer, using real chicken breasts, using real vegetables, and real ingredients. We're going to show you how to make the pastry, the sauce, put it all together, bake it, and have a really delicious meal. So, I hope you stay tuned for that one too. Touch, touch, touch. These are looking good, so we move them. Put 1 or 2 or 3, depending on how many you want, white chocolate chips onto your cookies. I'm going to put 3. We don't really want too much chocolate because we want the regular chocolate to stand out, but this adds a nice contrast. If I have an extra, I will actually put 4 on, and in fact I do. I'm not actually allowed to use a fryer. After the fryer incident of 2017, I was not allowed to use the fryer. I was banned from the fryer. In fact, I don't have a fryer. But if you guys want, I can show you how to make some really delicious fried stuff that's baked, like beignets, or really any kind of donut. Press 1, 2, 3 if you want a donut stream one day. And there are 2 left over. For me. Now, you'll notice that they look fine. The chocolate chips will look like they're not melted. But when you touch them, like magic, Attack of the Alex, thank you so much for the donation. Thank you. They'll melt and smear around.
This in normal chat, but you know, it was great catching another.
And that's the beauty. You don't even have to melt these because they already melt for you. That's how simple this recipe is. Spread them out.
Keep up the great work, smiley face.
And continue on. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we'll do a donut stream. I'll put that in the schedule too. Just smooth your chocolate chips out. It looks kind of like smearing butter on a piece of bread, but I don't think you'd want to smear butter on these cookies. Or you could actually, I don't know. I'm not you. I don't know you, I don't know you at all. Yep. So do what you like. I'm going to put white chocolate. I'm going to smear that around just a little bit in the center. We don't want these to be coated in white chocolate because that just takes away from the flavor of everything else. Butter on cookies, yeah. It's not a good idea, but I don't know. Some people are weird. I wouldn't do it personally. Just say no to extra butter, man. Be kind to your coronary artery. This is also a really good way if you're trying to melt chocolate for something, to put on top of something. If you're new to melting chocolate, because if you try to heat it, oh, touch my hands, and heat it wrong, it will burn. I tried, it sounds gross, but there's a first time for everything. I would highly advise you not to, Asian Batman, if you like your life, if you like being healthy. Perfect. Now, as with the other cookies, I'm going to try one of these. Pikachu, I choose you. These are so good. Not too chocolatey, not too sweet. Mmm. Rich. And like fudgy without being gluey. If they're gluey, you kind of feel like it's hard to swallow. You can't really eat them without drinking something. They're wonderful. These are so yummy. Holy crap. So, in the end, we have made these. I've got a Big Monster white chocolate cranberry oat cookie, a really pretty, you can't really see it, funfetti sugar cookie with lemon, and a white chocolate cookie. All of them are delicious. So yummy. What can I say? They're great. If I had a criticism of me, it would be I should have put the chocolate powder in earlier, but that's just, I mean, didn't really affect the outcome of the final product. It's fantastic. It's incredible. I love it. 10 out of 10, 11 out of 11, and 12 out of 12. So, what we're going to say, this is delicious. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching, I appreciate it. If you enjoyed my cooking, the links down below will send you to my Twitter, YouTube, and the recipe link will send you to my Tumblr, where hopefully this will be posted tonight, if not tomorrow morning. I would love to stay here and talk more. I've got some cookies to eat and a kitchen to clean. I think this is going to be a great weekend. Thank you guys so much, and goodbye.